think we're alone in the universe.
You can't think we're alone once you study how common our ingredients of life are in the universe. The atoms of our body, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, they're the three most common chemically active ingredients in the universe. We're not made of special stuff. We're carbon-based life that makes molecules all across the periodic table.
Yeah.
So if there was any kind of biology upon which you would base on an element, it would be carbon. Life got started almost as fast as it possibly could have in the early Earth. After Earth cooled down from meteor impacts that made us, once it cooled down, complex molecules formed. Within 100 million years, life appeared. So you combine these facts and then you look at the expanse of the 14 billion year age of the universe with 100 billion stars in our galaxy and 100 billion galaxies. To suggest that we are the only life in the universe would be inexcusably egocentric. Were launched to help us that are in orbit or dead. They're just debris. The amount of debris is staggering, and it poses risks to astronauts that are not only going into orbit, but might want to pass through the atmosphere towards other destinations. If you look at some illustrations of how much debris there is, I look at that and I say, that's why the aliens never visit.
Well, the New York Times says there are 9,000 satellites circling up there. More than half are Elon Musk's or from Elon Musk's company, Starlink. When you try to look through a telescope, it's like looking through a windshield filled with bugs, splattered bugs.
Yeah, they just cross in front of your field of view. And so it's kind of interesting at first. It's novel. Oh my gosh, I'm observing an orbiting satellite. But then they become annoying and basically evil at some. An extraordinary fact about water and why we're alive today. Okay, let's take a lake that has fish in it. Temperature drops outside, and the lake slowly begins to get cooler because there's a time lag between the air temperature and the waters. That's why the first freeze, the lake is still there. All right, so what happens? The water gets cold on the surface, and it begins to shrink. So that water it shrinks. That makes it denser. It falls to the bottom. Fine. It does that down to about 4 degrees Celsius. As it goes from 4 degrees Celsius to 0 degrees Celsius, the freezing point, it begins to expand and become less dense than the water. So now, as the water wants to actually freeze, it stays on top. When it does freeze, you freeze the top surface of the lake. Well, how about the water below it? It's insulated from the dropping air temperature, and the fish don't die. Imagine if ice were denser than water. What would happen? You'd freeze the top layer, it would sink. The bottom is frozen. Freeze the next layer, it sinks, and fish would be systematically forced to swim in shallower and shallower waters until they were all freeze-dried on the top surface. In the year 2029, that's one orbit away from the 2036 date. It has a 7-year intersection orbit with Earth. On that date, April 13th, which, by the way, is a Friday. So, April 13th, 2029, this asteroid, named Apophis, named for the Egyptian god of death and darkness. Named, of course, only after we calculated its trajectory to intersect Earth. If it were not going to hit Earth, we could have named it like Bambi or Tiffany, something non-threatening, all right? Freddy, something that it's not hurting anybody. Name that one Apophis. So we know for certain that Apophis on Friday the 13th, April 2029, it's the size of the Rose Bowl. It'll get close enough to Earth that it will dip below Earth's communication satellites. It'll be the biggest, closest thing ever to come near Earth. The communication satellites are at geosynchronous orbit. It's about 23,000 miles up. This will come in at 18,000 miles. It'll be visible from Northern Europe. The Geek Set has already rented the hotel rooms there, so you're out of luck. Because they did the math and they knew when and where it was going to happen.
Turns out that the human DNA follows Moore's law, and this means that every 600 million years, it will double in complexity. You go back from today, 2024, 600 million years, it would be half the complexity. Go back 600 million years, half the complexity.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so if you did that, you get to the original point where it doesn't, you can't go back anymore. And that original point, meaning, is when the first human DNA was born, let's say, and that turns out to be 9 billion years ago. So if the human DNA is 9 billion years old, but planet Earth is how old? 5 billion years? This means that the human DNA is older than the planet.
Wow.
So where was it? That proof that the human DNA existed somewhere else
Interesting.
and was implanted on.
The chicken or the egg debate.
People are still debating that?
They are.
It's not a debate.
That's what I think too.
No, it's not a debate. It's very clear and simple. The egg came first. It was just laid by a bird that was not a chicken.
Yeah, proto-chicken.
Yeah, proto-chicken, sure. And then there's a genetic alteration which occurs in every generation, very tiny genetic variations. And the egg that comes out of it, you would say, that's not a proto-chicken, that's a chicken.
Okay, so here's where we differ on this, and I'm open to changing my mind, of course.
As so many people aren't.
Yes, well, I try to be, I'm okay with being
If
wrong.
you convince me, go ahead.
So to me, the debate it's two-pronged, like chicken or the egg comes first, just because eggs as a concept are millions of years old. They predate chickens in general.
That's not why I think that's true, but that's also true.
Yeah, that's also true. So like that's like one thing that I think people get caught up on.
There were eggs way before they were chicken.
Yeah, eggs way before chicken.